Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Resurfacing Resilient Flooring. We have some brief housekeeping before we start. Your phones are muted. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box in the corner of your screen, and we'll answer them at the end of today's session, time permitting, or via an email after. And you can always send questions to mapeidigital@mapei.com. We also invite you to visit the floor covering and installation systems page on our website, www.mapei.com, where we have videos, projects, downloads, and more about adhesives and solutions for resilient and wood flooring. It's a lot of information, and it all happens to be overseen by today's speaker, the business manager for MAPEI's floor covering and installation systems product line, Jeff Johnson. Jeff brings to the industry more than 35 years' experience in the development and marketing of floor covering installation products. His practical experience in the construction industry and as a bench chemist give him an insightful perspective on surface preparation, moisture mitigation, and floor covering installation. Today, he's going to share information about such topics as extending the life of resilient flooring, as well as selecting appropriate finishes. So, without further delay, Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jen, and welcome everyone. And thank you again for taking some time out of your busy schedules to spend some time with me as we talk about something that I think is relatively exciting, particularly for my perspective. As Jen mentioned, I'm the floor covering installation system business marketing manager. So we spend a lot of time talking about subfloor preparation, moisture mitigation, adhesive selections, and all that kind of stuff, all of which happens to be under the floor. So today we're going to talk a little bit about stuff that's on top of the floor, and particularly on existing resilient flooring, and how MAPEI has products and systems that can help extend the life of those beyond their normal lifespan. So we start looking at the resilient market, and it's an incredible array of materials and visuals that create all kinds of looks, from stone materials to woods to tile looking, of course the VCT, the marmoleums, and whatever in the marketplace. There's a variety of different looks that you can create with this. Obviously, there's a great deal of advantage of these kinds of products in terms of installation. They come in a box, they're easy to cut, they are somewhat resilient and flexible, they can move them around. So there's a lot of exciting stuff that happens with the resilient floor covering market, whether it be in a tile form or sheet flooring as well. I just want to spend a little bit of time for you all on here on the webinar to get an idea of how much of this stuff is out there. For those of you who are the contractors in the market on the webinar, I'm sure you've installed a ton of this stuff in your careers, but this is some information that I thought was something of interest to you. If we look at just specifically vinyl composition tile or luxury vinyl tile and plank sales over the last 5 years, this is some information to give you an idea how many millions of square feet of VCT and LVT were sold and installed over the past 5 years. If you look at those two numbers, the VCT is 3,647,000,000 square feet, and the luxury vinyl tile and plank is up to 13,067,000,000 square feet. I mean, that's a lot of surface area. That's actually, if you run the math, that's 600 square miles of surface area that have been installed over the past 5 years rather. Sorry, that's a typo, my bad. That's the last 5 years, 600 square miles over the last 5 years, all of which is sold and presented for the most part with if you're in a commercial world, and maybe a 5-year performance warranty. If you're in a residential market, you may have an extended life on that as well, but it's got a limited service warranty to them. So what's the question, and what happens at the end of the warranty period? And we're going to talk about that. Where is this stuff used primarily? If you look at the vinyl composition tile market, It's definitely on the 70% of the side is the commercial market. And you and I have seen where VCT is installed in the retail environments. Every time you walk into a Walgreens, a CVS, Rite Aid, pharmacies, whatever, that's all VCTs. A lot of school work is VCT as well. Very limited usage in residential markets, but it is shows up there as somewhat as well. Again, that 70-30 market split. The LVT business, which everybody talks about these days, is really heavily oriented towards the residential market. But I do want to mention that the commercial segment of that pie is also growing considerably over the past couple of years, and we'll talk about that as well here in a minute. But keep in mind that that LVT section for commercial at 312 million square feet is creeping up on that 490 million square feet of commercial on VCT. So if you were to look at the pie charts or the slope charts, if you will, the bar graphs of these things, you'll see that the VCT is decreasing over time and LVT is increasing over time to replace volume. Why is that? And for the many of the same reasons that we mentioned in front of this presentation, the visuals that are obtained, the durability of the product, the ease of installation, and everybody's getting tired of looking at VCT installations. There's a lot to be said about that. Where is all this installed? Again, you take a look at the VCT is that blue column. Educational, schools, etc., do seem to be the biggest consumer of that vinyl composition tile. Some retail, office, and healthcare seems to be kind of an even split on VCT and LVT. But again, I want to mention that where VCT used to be, LVT is coming in and taking over quite a bit. Again, there's a couple of reasons for that, and I'll talk about one of them right now, is that the VCT is heavily maintenance oriented. If you understand anything about the VCT product, it requires, after it's installed, it has to be stripped and sealed and polished, and those polishes have to be done on a regular basis. So you're in a commercial environment, you have a pretty extensive janitorial responsibility to maintain, clean, strip, and repolish those floors, typically with microcrystalline waxes and burnishing equipment to keep the gloss level up and keep the maintenance of them up. LVT, on the other hand, does not require those heavy janitorial responsibilities because they already come pre-finished with either urethane or acrylics or e-beam, electronic beam, UV curable systems on the surface, so they've got the finish already installed on them, and theoretically they're a little bit more durable than the VCT counterparts. That, of course, you've got all that wonderful visuals to deal with as well. So something that is driving those changes is, that's one of the reasons, is the janitorial aspect of it, and the other part is the visual standpoint of it. Again, the educational bar that you see there on VCT, that number it's what, 270 million square feet of VCT is decreasing over time. And as schools get rehabilitated and refinished, refurbished, or even as new schools go installed, those numbers will continue to decrease in favor of the more attractive, more friendly looking versions of luxury vinyl tile. Having said all that, that's 600 square miles of resilient flooring out there. What is resilient flooring's worst enemy, or any resilient flooring's worst enemy, whether VCT or LVT or sheet vinyl, whatever? It's foot traffic. It's traffic and time and all the scuffing that people do across the floor as they walk across it, drive carts across it. You know what we're talking about. If you look at grocery stores with grocery carts, airports that have vinyl flooring on them with all the foot traffic, when all the bottoms of these shoes are not smooth and soft. I'm sorry, there's a pair of Uggs on the right side of that picture. That's not really going to cause that much damage, but people with hard bottom shoes, or even athletic wear that picks up sand and grit as you walk in from the parking lot to get into the inside of the building is going to cause significant amounts of abrasion over time. Yes, it's not something that's going to happen instantly, but over the period of 4 or 5, 6 or 7 years, things are going to start happening to that resilient flooring that are going to cause it to lose its luster, lose its appearance, and wind up looking like, maybe I need to replace that again. So this is the problem. I apologize for some of these pictures, but time and traffic and lack of proper maintenance. That one photograph up there in the upper right with a broom and a dustpan that probably has never been used since it got brought back from the store is something that is going to be bad for a resilient floor installation. Resilient means just that, it's flexible. And as a consequence, it's going to be a little bit more sensitive to abrasion than some of the harder materials that are out there like tile or stone. But if you're not properly maintaining them, if you don't have walk-off mats as you come in from the outside to clean the bottoms of your feet, you are going to be bringing in abrasive materials that are going to wind up scuffing that surface of the floor. And I don't know about you, but if having walk-off mats in front of your home before you walk into your house is not really a common thing. You just come on in and there you go. So let's spend a little bit of time remembering how LVT is made, and we'll talk about VCT here in a moment, but I just want to remind you that luxury vinyl tile, which is the fair-haired child of the flooring market these days, is made up of a variety of different layers. There's a PVC base that's usually the thicker, the heavier part, sometimes containing recycled post-consumer regrind, whatever. It's the structure on which the print film, it rests on. That is typically a very thin printed paper, which has a wear layer put on top of it. That's usually that cross-linked urethane material, and a top coat, which goes on top of it, and that's very thin, it's a very thin material, and it's designed to provide the gloss level that you want, whether it's matte, semi-gloss, satin, or whatever you want. That's how that is achieved. VCT, on the other hand, I don't have a slide for that, but we'll talk about that here as well. It's made by a homogeneous mixture, if you will, of a lot of calcium carbonate and a little bit of PVC and a variety of different design elements, flecks of different colors. A very rigid material, not as flexible, very easy to break, which is one of the reasons why you got to make sure you have a nice smooth flat floor putting VCT down, because it doesn't want to conform to the floor, and if you leave gaps or dips in it, you can break it. I think we've all seen that as we walk through our drugstores where a corner of a VCT is broken for one reason or another, probably because there wasn't a proper enough subfloor prep to make sure the bottom was flat. At any rate, it's stiff, and the only way you get the gloss performance out of that is by adding that microcrystalline high polished wax and all the janitorial effort that needs to go onto it again. So we're really kind of focusing on here for the purpose of this presentation is the durability of that top coat, whether it be on an LVT product, a resilient sheet flooring product, or VCT. We're talking about the durability of that material. So what happens over time? And again, this is something you probably already figured out or understand, but when you get a brand new box of flooring, whether it be sheet, LVT, or VCT, it comes out with a very nice, smooth, homogeneous wear layer that gives you that nice glossy surface. And over time, and as we walk on it and drag stuff across it and shove boxes across it, you're going to get some micro abrasions into the surface. Those micro abrasions are going to scatter light differently than the smooth film that was on it to begin with. And as a consequence, you're going to wind up creating a hazy surface or a foggy looking surface on top of your floor. So that's what you get a little bit bent out of shape with all that effort that you went to install this product. Over time, it's starting to look a little bit fuzzy. So what are your options? How do you deal with that? Okay, so the first thing you might think about doing is running to your local grocery store, big box retailer, grab some sort of off the shelf floor polish to go on the floor that might help bring back some luster. You know the brands of products that are out there that you can buy. There are a variety of different choices of them, and they all work to a certain extent. But the problem that you deal with is they're ablative. They don't stay on the system very long. They will wear off easily and require continued application and update. And it's not entirely uncommon to see floors that have multiple layers of these polishes on them to try to keep restore the gloss and keep the product updated. So that is the limitations of using off-the-shelf floor polishes. Even if you're using microcrystalline waxes to deal with VCT polishing, etc. Again, they are very sensitive to traffic and friction. You know, think about a wax. What causes a wax to melt? It's heat. How do you get heat? By friction, by pushing your foot across the floor, by dragging a chair across the floor. All that stuff adds energy to the system, will actually help melt the wax a little bit, allow the dirt and debris to get into the wax, and you wind up with a mess again over time. So floor polishes are a band-aid. They don't necessarily solve the problem, but can give you another couple months of life out of the floor before you start considering, all right, maybe I need to replace this stuff. And okay, so some floors, if they're existing, can have another floor installed on top of them. A resilient sheet flooring that's fully bonded, for example, can have another layer of some resilient flooring installed over the top of it. VCT can have another layer of flooring installed over the top of it. Again, all of it's with it's fully bonded and no gaps and not any damage involved in that, and no loose sections underneath it. LVT, on the other hand, is not necessarily something that any of us really want to recommend going over it, because it's like going over a strip wood flooring. It's got some dimensional movement issues that you need to deal with, and it would not be something we'd recommend to install a second floor on top of an existing LVT installation. So you're kind of at a spot where, okay, if I need to put a new floor and I've got LVT down, my only choice here is to remove that flooring, strip the adhesive residue, prepare the substrate again, and install a new floor covering. Painful, and I'm not going to lie, it's expensive. And for those of you who are on the phone who are floor covering wholesalers and floor covering contractors, I understand this is your business. This is your stock and trade. You know, that's what we want to do. When we see a floor that is aged out, let's bring the machine in, pull it all up, install a new floor covering, and that's how we make our revenue stream. That's all great. But if I'm the owner of the building, if I'm the manager of the store, I have to look at the financial aspect of doing that. Does this make sense to do this? I mean, how much is it going to cost to remove and replace, or are there any other options? So let's take a look at that. Just to remove it, and again, we're talking about resilient floor covering to remove it, whether it's an existing LVT, maybe it's a resilient floor covering that's already 2 layers that needs to be dealt with. We can't install another resilient flooring covering over 2 layers of material, so we've got the option, it has to be removed. So if you're going to remove sheet vinyl, just the labor alone to do that is in the range of $2 to $2.25 a square foot. VCT might be a little bit easier. And again, I'll make sure I always put my, what do I try to say, my caveat down here at the bottom, my disclaimer. These numbers are provided as estimates only and not to be taken as a quotation. So please don't go back to anybody and say, Jeff said from MAPEI that it's only going to cost me $2.25 to remove the sheet vinyl and your quote's for $5. I'm sorry, please don't quote me. I mean, this is an assembly of data that I've got from a variety of different inputs, and it depends on the labor base, whether it's independent versus union, depends on the complexity of the project, There's a variety of different things in there, but I just wanted to give some sort of a understanding of the ballpark. How much is it potentially going to cost just to remove the floor covering? Okay. So that's removal costs. And again, once that's done, you have to come back and install another floor covering. And if you're talking about sheet vinyl and LVT, that can be as much as $5.50 to $7 a square foot, including materials and labor. VCT, perhaps a little bit less expensive, but still in that $3 to $5 a square foot, including materials and labor. Again, keep in mind that subfloor prep, moisture mitigation with necessary leveling, adhesives, and all the labor that's involved to put all this stuff together. It does not happen like that, and it's not terribly cheap. So if you look at that, the removal and installation, if I'm the business owner that's got this floor that looks a little bit worn out, I have to look at anywhere from 7 to 10 square feet to remove and restore. That's a pretty expensive bill to look at. And if I'm looking at a retail outlet that's 5,000 square feet, or even larger warehouse shops or grocery stores that are in the order of 100,000 to 200,000 square feet, this gets to be a very expensive proposition just to deal with a floor that's worn out and it's at the end of its lifespan. So you're throwing money away to deal with that. And not only that, from an environmental standpoint, let's all put on our fern hats for a moment here and talk about what we're throwing away when we do that. I mean, the vinyl flooring that you're putting on, whether it's resilient flooring or not, VCT or LVT or sheet vinyl, all that stuff weighs about 2 pounds to 3 pounds per square foot. So if you're pulling all that up, where does it go? It goes into the dumpster, the roll off that's outside the building, and that goes immediately into landfill eventually. So again, 1,000 square foot replacement project is going to throw a ton worth of vinyl resin into the landfill. Again, if I'm keeping my fern hat on when I'm talking about sustainability, it doesn't make sense to me that if there's an opportunity to refurbish or reuse or renew these kinds of flooring, I should be doing that as opposed to throwing all this stuff into a landfill. Again, you can do the math with me. If you've got 100,000 square foot retail environment, there's a lot of material that's being thrown into the landfill and it's end of use. There's nothing else to do with it. So why can't we think about a way to replace it? Instead of replacing it, renew it. Sorry about the emphasis on the wrong word there. Let's renew it. So what we're going to talk about here in the next couple minutes is a sustainable solution that can keep tons of this resilient floor covering from going directly into a landfill by installing a new high performance urethane wear layer on the surface, extending the life of the floor covering potentially another 5 to 10 years, depending upon the level of traffic and the use that this stuff is going to get. And once we do that, by going to these urethane types of finishes, the maintenance time compared to traditional polished wax systems is considerably less. So there's more sustainable, more environmentally friendly stuff going on here as well. And remember what I told you about VCT, for example. VCT traditionally requires strippers and cleaners and waxes in order to make it clean and polished and glossy. Well, what we're going to talk about here with this ReNewIt system is a way that works not only on LVT, not only on resilient sheet vinyl, but also works on VCT, providing a urethane wear layer on top of these floors that is just like factory provide, factory finish. So how does this all work? And let's talk about the system. So it is called the Ultracoat ReNewIt system, and it's for resilient flooring. It's a 4-step process, and we'll talk about these products in a minute, all of which are extremely simple to do and provides you, if you're one of our distributor partners or contractor that use our products, give you another option to the consumer on how to deal with a floor that is worn. And I just want to make sure another caveat here. This is floor that is worn, not stuff that's gouged, cut, chipped into, and so on and so forth. What we're talking about here is floor that's getting close to the end of its lifespan, and that we're dealing with traffic patterns to the floor that you can see, gloss loss, where you've got it going on. This is what we're dealing with. So anyway, let's take a look at the products as we go through them. We start with step 1, which is a compound called Ultracoat ReNewIt Remover. And this is a very aggressive stripper, if you will, that removes all the old mop and glow, once and done stuff that's been loaded up on top of a floor over years. It lifts all the old acrylic finishes off the floor and helps remove all that contamination and debris. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, some VCT on the before side was on the left, and after the remover was done on the right. So again, it is applied for, it comes ready to use. It's not something you have to dilute or add to water. It's immediately ready to use. It can be done on a commercial scale in an auto scrubber. Put it in the auto scrubber and then apply it to the floor and allow it to penetrate and soak into the system. It does help to give this some dwell time. If any kind of stripper, the best function you get out of is if you allow them to sit there wet on the surface of the floor for a period of time to work their way into all the polishes that are on the surface to be softened up. You can also use this with a mop. These products, in my opinion, are easily used by the commercial flooring maintenance guy as well as the homeowner, home worker, as well, doing your own regular floors. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's something you can pour out onto the floor, let it soak in, and then soak it up, and then rinse it with water after it's done. So the first step is the remover. And what this does is removes all the fuzz and junk that's on the surface so that we can get to a clean surface on which to bond the next couple steps. The next step is a cleaner. That may sound kind of funny. Well, you just cleaned the floor with a remover. Now, why do I need a cleaner? Now, the cleaner serves to help remove any of the remaining remover. This kind of goes to those stories about why we don't want to recommend solvent-based adhesive removers on floor covering installation, because they get left behind and continue to work on the next adhesive you put on them. Same story here. So whatever remover might be left over after you rinse it, we still need to make sure that that's all super clean. So the cleaner helps clean off any leftover residues, and it comes up with a really clean, almost surgically clean, squeaky floor. I mean, literally, if you walk across this floor after you've hit it with the cleaner version, your shoes will squeak as they go across the floor. So it's a squeaky clean type of a process. So that's also easy to use with a auto scrubber. It can be put in the machine to do large surface areas, or hand mop, microfiber pads, etc., to be able to clean that up. So that's step 2. Now both these 2 steps that we just mentioned, the first step takes about an hour to do, because applying it, letting it, soaking it, cleaning it, rinsing it. You do not have to wait any particular period of time before you go to the next step. The cleaner can be done immediately after the remover step. So now you're into a super clean floor on which we can go to the next step in the process. And step 3 is a primer solution. And again, this is the product that allows us to stick to virtually anything. This primer is a phenomenal product. It's a 2-part system. You have to mix part A and part B. That means it has a little bit of it has a pot life, which is about 45 minutes to 2 hours, depending upon the temperature and of the day. But you mix these 2 parts together, pour them on the floor, and it will bond to virtually anything. Again, whether it's a UV curable system, an acrylic coating, a cross-linked urethane, the primer sticks to anything and makes it a consistent base on which we can finish the floor with a finishing here. We'll talk about it in a minute. Again, how this goes on, again, simple process. Commercial guy, people with some skills, some talent, might want to use a T-bar applicator, which is a very common tool used in the wood floor finish business. Maybe not necessarily for the week apart. They don't know how to run with one of those things, but we have options of being able to use it with a microfiber nap, 1/4 inch nap roller. Again, everybody knows how to run a paint roller. So this is very simple, very easy to do. Takes about 4 to 5 hours to cure out. And then we go to the last step is to determine what we want the floor to finish to look like. And we have 2 options for you, and we'll talk about the first one. The first one is to use one of our wood flooring adhesives called Ultracoat HT 2K. And it is a 2-part aliphatic isocyanate cured high solids, high performance finish in a variety of different glosses. So here's where you want to decide, I've got my floor nice and clean. What do I want it to look like? Do I want to look like natural, which is a 0 gloss, or do I want something really super shiny like a 60 gloss? So you can pick what you want the floor to look like based on whatever gloss you pick from this. Again, it's a 2-part system, mixed part A and part B. And one of the interesting things about this product is you can use tints and dyes to be able to add to the mix to actually add a little bit extra color to the system. If you wanted to, it's not necessarily going to make it opaque, but these are tints that can add a gray color, brown color, whatever you want to add to the system to somewhat change the overall visual of the product. And by doing that, you may actually hide some of the defects that might be on the floor as well, but it can be tinted. Again, methods of application are this 1/4 inch microfiber nap roller or a T-bar applicator, again, applying a relatively thin coat to the surface of it. So that's what goes on. And what's happening here is that this coating is actually applying a new wear layer on top of the surface of that micro-abraded wear layer that's worn out and fuzzed up. So it is a thicker material that is cross-linked and fully bonded to the primer layer that you have on there. It's not going to come off. So again, these are, I mentioned before, high performance coating systems. And I have to do this, I'm dragging this in from our wood floor installation business where we use Ultracoat HT 2K successfully on commercial and residential high traffic environments where you've got dogs and dog fingernails and boots with nails in the bottom of them. It's very durable, it lasts a very, very long time. So this is not something that's going to wear off in 2 or 3 months. This is something that has considerably longer lifespan to the product. I will throw out one other option for finishes on the LVT, on the resilient flooring that's out there. One other product we have in the offering is called Mapecoat for LVT. This one actually is part of our shower system for LVT, which is another webinar we have online that you can look up for. But it is a traction coating. Again, it's designed to work on resilient flooring and provides traction in wet environments. So again, if you're working in a commercial environment, I mentioned before, grocery stores, for example, where the front of the produce section, this picture you see here on the left, they have dealt with the slip issue of wet floors by putting walk-off mats in front of the produce. Mapecoat for LVT could take the place of those walk-out mats because they do provide the necessary ADA requirements for wet traction and will make LVT a lot more surface friction, so it'll hold things together. Again, this is a very simple application with a 1/4 inch nap roller as well. Takes about 6 to 8 hours for final curing, and you've got a final floor that's done and ready to put back into service. You may be asking, well, what's the durability of all this stuff? What am I going to expect out of the lifespan of these products? And we've done a lot of testing on these products in terms of how well they last, what's their durability. One of the tests that we run is a rolling load resistance testing, which is a machine that has a hard rubber wheel that rolls around in a figure-8 shape over a very defined surface. and we add weight on top of that wheel over time. Like I think these things run like 300 cycles at 100 pounds, at 300 cycles at 200 pounds, all the way up to 500 pounds, which is pretty massive amounts of weight to determine the durability of our coatings. And what we see here is that Ultracoat ReNewIt system with an HD2K lived very well up to like 500 pounds of weight on that rolling load machine. You might see a little bit of friction from that wheel that's on the surface. That I'm not sure you can see my mouse, but somewhere in this area you'll see a little bit of that figure 8 pattern where the wheel goes, and particularly that spot right in the middle. That crack you see is because the LVT broke underneath the weight of the machine at that point. So there's no, what we're saying here is that there's no delamination of the film, there's no the finish stuck. It's got a very durable finish. And the same thing is true of Mapecoat for LVT. A little bit more friction, a little bit more traction. You might see a little bit more of the rubber wheel that's worn off on that. But again, the LVT broke, but no peeling and no loss of bond of the surface. So I'm going to throw out a little bit of information about costing information. And again, we have to, I get myself in trouble with this, so we're just kind of talking this in generalities. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time for this as well, but you may be wanting to know, well, how much does this all cost me per square foot? And the general number here is anywhere from 36 cents to 45 cents per square foot, depending upon which final system you use, whether it's an HD2K finish or a Mapecoat for LVT finish. Again, this is would be our list pricing information. General speaking, okay, somewhere in the range of 50 cents per square foot to remediate that floor. Again, that's pretty significant savings. Again, that's material costs. You have to add a little bit of your labor in there as well. We'll talk about that as well. I mean, it does require manpower, but overall, it's relatively quick to do. Easy application, 150 to 200 square feet per hour. That's a pretty fast rate. Certainly a much faster return to service than tear out and replace. When we talk about that removal process, that's days in order to do that. Days to remove the product, days to prepare the floor, days to reinstall the floor covering. Here we're just coming in, cleaning, priming, and refinishing, and maybe tinting as we need to, and we're done. Maybe 24 hours later, and put the floor back into business. Again, considerably less money, 50 cents per square foot average, eased installation, and much easier to maintain. I do want to mention that, spend some time on that easier to maintain thing. I mean, these cross-linked urethane coatings are really good surface areas. I mean, that's why a lot of floor covering has them as part of their finished wear layers. They're durable, they don't pick up dirt, and so on and so forth. We've seen in a variety of the tests and projects we've done using this product that the Ultracoat HT2K refurbished floors don't pick up dirt as even anywhere as close as what you would have with a traditional polished wax system. We've done several school installations where we've used the ReNewIt system with HD2K to do a VCT refurbishment. We did one room with HD2K and one with traditional methods, and the difference between those floors were night and day. Dragging chairs across it didn't scuff. The flooring didn't pick up the dirt and debris from shoes coming in from the floor like the traditional floors were. So maintaining those floors was a lot easier. So there's a lot of light bulbs that are going on with building management businesses, people saying this is a great way to perhaps save some money long term. And the other advantage, which I really haven't mentioned much more, but it hermetically seals the flooring. Again, if you're dealing with modular products like VCT or LVT, there are gaps, seams everywhere, right? If you're in an environment, how do I put this, geriatric facilities where you're trying to keep fluids from going from on top of the floor into the concrete, these seams from VCT and LVT provide that opportunity to penetrate through. Well, by putting on a coating of HT2K or Mapecoat for LVT, we bridge those seams and create a full seal on it. So again, that's very easy to do and an added benefit on a deal. All right, and just lastly, I want to give you from the customer angle, the person who's involved here. We see one of our distributor partners, I think in the Tennessee area. This was on the left side, what his floor looked like to begin with. He moved a gondola to kind of move his product around, and you can see the filth and debris that was on the side. And I'm going to play you a little bit of it about his response, and we'll come right back to the presentation.
So this is how it looks like ReNewIt with one coat of MAPEI 2 component. It looks awesome.
Really amazing.
Thank you, Mr. Dale from MAPEI. It really looks impressive.
Nothing like a customer testimonial about how something works. Again, they tried everything to get this floor cleaned and was not getting anything done, but we were able to come in, strip it all from the junk that was on there, and give them basically a brand new floor at a considerably less pain. So I'll wrap things up here and open the floor up for some questions. But again, in summary, the traditional methods for dealing with worn out resilient flooring require time, labor, business disruption, etc., many things to tear out and replace, which can cost anywhere from $7 to $10 a square foot. Again, please don't quote Jeff on your next quote. He said only 7 to 10. I'm just using it for ballpark. We're getting in the realm of reason. Plus, you're disposing of uncounted pounds of wasted plastic and raw material resources where we might be able to refurbish them, rebuild them, and put them back into use by extending them with the Ultracoat ReNewIt system. Offers a sustainable approach to rehabilitation existing resilient flooring by deep cleaning, priming, and installing basically a new high-performance wear layer for additional years of use. Well, I hope you've all been very interested in this, and I think now at this point I'll turn it back over to Jen, and one last thing. Oh yeah, the Ultracoat ReNewIt system also works on any type of wood floor installation as a sandless refinishing solution, which is really where the product came from to begin with. But lo and behold, we've discovered that it also works on refurbishing resilient flooring without tearing it out. So now with that, I'll open up the floor to any questions. On Jen, I'll turn it back over to you to kind of field some of that.
All right. Well, another great presentation, so thank you. And we do have some questions. Yep. The first one, how often do you need to recoat with the Ultracoat HT 2K?
That's a good question. The answer is depends. It depends on the amount of traffic and kind of where the floor is going to get, but it's not something that has to be done on a monthly or biannual basis. It's basically something that I'm looking at something 5 to 7 years later after the floor's been down. Again, these products are used extensively in wood floor finishes, and this is on average, people say that every 7 years a wood floor needs to be refinished because of the same issues. The resilient floors, it loses its gloss, loses its luster, and things need to be brightened up a little bit. And a new coating of the finish works very well for that. So what would be the steps on refinishing an Ultracoat ReNewIt project is basically coming in with a floor machine, a maroon pad to scuff up the surface a little bit, make sure it's good and clean, and then apply another coat of Ultracoat HT2K or Mapecoat for LVT on top of it, and you're good to go. So again, it depends on the level of traction. If you're in a heavy retail environment, that may be less than 5 years, but it shouldn't be that much shouldn't be any less than that. But it all depends. Okay.
Gotcha. Can Mapecoat for LVT be used on porcelain tile?
Get that question all the time, and I hate to
Yeah.
do this. Unfortunately, the answer is no. We've tried that, and we haven't been able to get that. It would be really nice to be able to provide some wet traction to tile. I know the demand is there. At this point in time, it just doesn't work at this point.
Gotcha. All right. Okay, well, kind of piggybacking on to, I guess, the other question is, how do you maintain a floor that's been refurbished using the Ultracoat ReNewIt process?
Right. Good question, and we have solutions for that as well. But in general, you want to be using what we would consider a neutral cleaner. Try to avoid things that are acidic or basic for use for cleaning the floor. We have a product called Ultracoat Universal Cleaner, which is designed specifically for that. It's a concentrated solution, 1 ounce per gallon. It's how that kind of works, but it provides the necessary cleaning to remove all that kind of stuff. That would be something I would recommend. That's some background noise.
Yep, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway, that's
Okay.
in terms of maintenance, that would be my recommendations. There's no need for buffing or polishing because it's not going to respond to that kind of activity. Matter of fact, if you came on top of it with a buffing pad, it might do something you don't want it to have happen. It might haze out by putting some abrasion on. That's how we prepare the coating for another layer of material. So microfiber dust mats to be able to pick up dust and debris, walk-off mats on the outside of the building to make sure you get the sand and grit off your shoes before you come inside. All these things are good practices for that as well. Okay.
Gotcha. All right. When recoating, is the primer coat necessary before putting on the new top coat?
No, not at this point. If you already have a layer of Ultracoat HT2K or Mapecoat for LVT on there, no. All you would need to do is to abrade the surface. Again, that's a very common practice in the wood floor market where they do a screen on top of the existing coating, abrade it somewhat, makes a little bit of a white dust, you backen that up, and then immediately come back and put the next coating on and you're good to go. So no need for the primer on that. The primer is really there to deal with the myriad of types of finishes that are on the resilient flooring from the manufacturer's perspective. That's the magic that makes it work. Once you've got one of MAPEI Ultracoat products on top of it, another one will bond directly to that without a problem.
Cool. All right. Here's an interesting one. Who owns the flooring warranty after a floor has been treated with Ultracoat ReNewIt products?
Yeah, that's a good question because the next question is where's the warranty go? And once you've done it, and basically the answer is MAPEI owns that floor from that perspective on, because we are modifying it with a permanent application of some sort of a finish on the top. So it really becomes a Mapefloor product. So we have certain amounts of limited warranties for these kinds of products on top of the floor. Again, we'll deal with the finish and the wear of those products. That's how that works. But since we are modifying the flooring logically, MAPEI pretty much takes responsibility for that at that point.
Gotcha. Part of the best backed industry warranty then, right?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Okay. How long will the new wear layer last? This is one of those that supposes it depends, right?
Yeah, as mentioned before, it depends. I mean, it's very durable. We've got experience with these things being on wood floors for 10 years and they still look great. And that's a residential application. Commercially, again, that's the five-year number. I think what we look for residential lifespan before you need to recoat, but it's not something that needs to be done on a regular basis.
Cool. All right. Well, give everybody just a second or two more to formulate their thoughts, because I know I always say it, but the second I turn these off, I think of 12 things, to ask. And if that happens, you can always send your questions to us at MAPEI Digital at mapei.com, and I will be sure that they get to Jeff. But if there aren't any more questions, then we will say thank you. And thank you, Jeff, for a great presentation.
My pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, for spending some time with us today, because we know that schedules are very, very full, and we appreciate that you took some time out of your day to spend some time with us. So with that, I will conclude, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.